My name is Reuben Saint. I lived here in Morton here in Lower Sioux for most of my life. For a while I was in California for about 5 years, and then of course 4.5 years in the Second World War. But otherwise I've been here, and I know most of the people here. And my dad was the first Indian ordained minister to be here. He was ordained by Bishop Whipple, the first bishop of Minnesota. My dad was born in Faribault, Minnesota. That's where he was raised. And later on then he went to school at the military academy there at Shattuck, and also went to St. Mary's School. And then he was ordained as a minister and came here, and he was here for 55 years, I think, as a minister, and then finally retired. And we are of the Dewakantua Sioux tribe. We don't like the name Sioux because that's a French word meaning snake in the grass. I guess French called the Sioux that because he snuck through the grass like a snake. It didn't sound that bad, but anyway, we like to be called Dakotas, which we are. We are the Dewakantua Sioux, and we are now called, we used to be called the Bishop Whipple Mission. And then in 1936, when the self-government came in here, then we were named the Lower Sioux. We took that name. The one in Granite Falls is called the Upper Sioux, and this is the Lower Sioux Indian community. It's not a reservation, it's a community. There's only about 28 families. It varies, sometimes 30, but most of the people, all the young people live in the cities most of the time because there is no work here. So that's, then of course, after the outbreak, most of the Indians left here, and they didn't come back in here till later years when Bishop Whipple brought some of the Christian Indians back in here, and then they finally, most of them were Christians that came back, and then the church used to be east of where it is now, the Bishop Whipple Church, and so that was moved back here, and the Indians rebuilt that church. And then Bishop Whipple's niece, Miss Salisbury, came here. Oh, she was going to marry, she lived in Faribault, and she was going to marry an army officer there when she was in her younger days. When she was a young lady in here, all of a sudden he died, so she made up her mind she was going to go to some foreign mission, and Bishop Whipple told her why don't you go down to Morton? There's a Indian settlement there, you could be a missionary there. So she came here, and this is where she settled in. She stayed here, I wouldn't know exactly, but it must be about 60 years. She died, and then she was even buried. She wanted to be buried here. So she is buried here by the church. The church is, we're of the Episcopalian denomination, and the church was built by the Indians, and then the windows were imported from England. They're the real stained glass windows, and there is no nails in that church. It's all wooden pegs. Yeah, wooden pegs put in the church. So maybe later on, if you have time, you can go in there and look at that and maybe take some pictures of it, and you'll see the beams in there are all wood pegs. So then then of course, after she died, then there's other ministers that came in here. We now have a new minister here. He's a real Dakota Sioux, full blood, from South Dakota, and his name is Reverend Bearsheart, and he can hold services in the Sioux language, or even in the English or anything, and he's really in big demand. He goes all over, and he's a likable man, really a wonderful man. Yes, sir. Now, do you want me to go on? Yeah. Well, I guess I'll say something about the outbreak, which happened in 1862 here. It was an awful bad thing. And most of the Indians left the area then. Some of them went up into Canada and North and South Dakota. And it took quite a few years before they came back. I think I said in there that Bishop Whipple was the one that brought the Christian Indians back. And gradually they came back, and now there's about anywhere from 24 to 30 families here. Depends upon. And the outbreak happened because there was a payment coming to these Indians, and the government didn't bring that. I think a day or so after the outbreak, then the payment came, which is too late. I think that was one of the Indians. Some of the Indians went to the store here and wanted to see if he could transfer some food, and the storekeeper told him to. Why don't you go eat grass? So, after the outbreak, they found his storekeeper, and of course he was killed, and his mouth was stuffed with grass, green grass. And of course, we don't care to talk about it too much nowadays, and because it was a bad thing. I think that the government was blamed for that because of the payment. They should have had that payment. It was here, and they didn't rush it in, so the Indians were starving. They didn't have nothing to eat, so that finally that's how it started. And we don't really talk about it too much nowadays. It's a thing of the past, and now everything has changed. And years ago there used to be a hatred between the whites and the Indians here, and pretty much, but now it's all gone. The younger people have forgotten them, and we get along real good nowadays. And so now we're an organized group of Indians. We have our own council. We have 4 women and 1 man on the council, and we've had different programs of fixing our homes and our wells. I think last year there was 5 new wells dug on the reservation. I have one here myself. I have real nice water and everything. And so these council, they take care of all our business. And then, well, they take care of us in a lot of ways. Our roads are taken care of. We used to have to go down below the hill here to get our mails and walk down these steep hills, and now our mailboxes are right up to the door, so we don't have to. We just walk out and get our mail in. And we have 2 ladies here on the reservation that take care of all the older people, and well, the younger people too. Whenever anyone gets sick or anything, why, we have phones. Everybody has phones, and we call them up, and it don't make a difference what time of the night. They'll get up and take us to the hospital or to dentists, and even us older people. We want to go to town. They take us to town, and we get our groceries and like that, you know. So they watch us pretty close, which is good. And we have a program, a CETA program here now this summer. Quite a few of the younger boys and girls are on that program. They do a lot of weed cutting and pick up all the garbage, and they've worked around our church this summer, dug up all the trees that were cut down and the roots and like that. They have done that. Of course, where we got our start was in 1934, when they first called it the self-government. Then they got more land here, and most of the Indians farmed. We farmed with horses, and some of them had tractors, but we didn't have enough land. The most they had maybe 40 acres, and that isn't, you can't hardly farm, you know, with horses and that. We had machinery that was obsolete, and so finally the Indians just quit farming, and now we lease most of our land out, and farmers around here put in our land, and that's where we get our lease money that way. But otherwise we get along real good along with everything. The council takes care of us, and whenever we need anything, we have meetings once a month, and we know what's going on, and they tell us what's going on, and some of them even go to Washington and tell us what's happening. We have a big payment coming, and we hope to get that pretty soon. Our enrollment is not up to date, so I think that's what's holding us. I hope that pretty soon we'll get that. Otherwise, now we have the CETA program, which is a government program that helps us a lot too. They give us material to fix our homes, such as roofing and insulation and things like that. So we're getting along real good here on the reservation. We don't have no trouble or nothing like that. We get along real good.
Reuben, you seem to be comfortable here and happy.
Yes.
People are taking care of you real well.
That's right.
What are your interests? What do you?
Well, now I do. I'm interested in painting. My mother was very artistic, and I guess we inherited it from her. That's what my dad says. And I have a nephew that's pretty famous in portrait painting, and I have nieces that paint in our family, and so that's what I do now. And I'm sort of retired, and I love to paint, and I guess it just comes naturally. I never had no experience. Only during the war, I was stationed near Paris, France. Well, I went into Germany first, and after the war I was stationed in Leipzig, Germany, and there I took lessons from some of the German painters. I used to go to their homes, and at that time they were very hard up for cigarettes, so maybe I'd take them a package of cigarettes, and then I learned a lot from them German painters because I was doing a lot of things wrong that I should have done now. And then later on, I was stationed in Leipzig at a DP camp for about a year, about 6 months, and that's when I worked with German, and I learned a lot from them. Then from there I came back to Camp Chesterfield, just outside of Paris, France, and there again I would go in for there every evening and work with the French artists there, and I learned a lot from them. And now that I'm sort of retired, I really make a fairly good living besides my Social Security, and I get an Army pension, but I do a lot of paintings. I get orders. I can hardly keep up with them. I used to paint nothing but wildlife, and mostly wildlife sceneries and things like that. And so here, the fella, the head artist at the Marshall College wanted to see me and bring him up some of my paintings. So I took, I think, a picture of a pheasant and a deer and a scenery, and he told me, he said, these pictures are good, but you shouldn't paint pictures like that anymore. Well, I said, I have to because I make a living at it. He told me, he says, well, he says, you're an Indian, and if you make Indian paintings, he says, you're going to sell Indian paintings. I just go home and do nothing but your Indian culture, being that you're an Indian, he said, make Indian paintings. So before that, I could never sell an Indian painting. Nobody would ever buy a Indian like that around here because of the outbreak, it still had that feeling that they had nothing to do with Indians. Now everything is Indian. I can't keep up with the Indian paintings. Here's a lady right here that's ordered this painting, and she called me yesterday, and she's anxious to get it. And I can make Indian paintings and sell them. That's all I do, is all Indian sceneries or paintings, and buffalo and things like that. The sacred buffalo, which goes very good. And
would you show us some of your paintings, like this one?
yeah. Well, this is not finished. This is only about half finished. And but that I will have that done by the weekend. Then of course here's one that I'm starting here too. Is here, and that is not. And then of course I do modern painting a little bit too. So I would. Here's one that some young guy asked for this, so I made that.
Oh, some young guy.
Young fellow wants that, yeah. So and of course I do a lot of scenery pictures too. But it keeps me busy. I can't hardly keep up with the orders. I just every day I'm painting here, and I don't paint the smaller pictures. I work in a kitchen here, but most of the time I have a big easel in the other room, where that's where I go and I sit in there, and I make pictures. I paint pictures that are maybe, I have one here now that's 36 by 2 feet, which is a big painting, you know. And so so that keeps me busy. And of course I do a little fishing yet. I'm 72 years old now, but I still go out hunting, and I fish and like that. And for every year I get my deer. We're allowed to hunt on the reservation here any time of the season, but we don't take advantage of it, just for what we want to eat. Here's a picture of the Grand Tetons. It isn't finished. It really isn't finished. It has to be some more work done. It's a summer scene of the Grand Tetons. And the other one. So it keeps me pretty busy. And I taught in the Morton High School for about a year, and I really had a time there, but I liked it, and I still teach a few kids that come from Redwood and different places, come and work with me sometimes for a day or so. And here is the Grand Tetons more in the winter scene with the snow, and you can see the falls and the fog, yeah. Jackson Hole, Wyoming, yeah.
Would you introduce your assistant here?
Oh yes, this is Sylvia. This is Sylvia Spencer. She helps me a lot with my painting here, and she's my art critic. She really she gets a lot of my work. It's through her that I do a lot of work. Yeah. Say something. Right.
Well, Reuben was selling his paintings much too reasonable. Years ago, he'd only sell them for $6 or $12, and it seemed like he was stuck on them two numbers. And I felt the value of his pictures should be, appreciated, and I felt that he should bring up the price more. And they are buying him better, they're buying him more now, and they feel that there's a better value to them, more value, now since the price has gone up. And so I think it's helping him, it's keeping him plenty busy.
Yes. Yeah, she's my helper.
Oh, that's nice. You have some artifacts lying here, Reuben.
Yes, I do. You take this here was found over here by Beaver Falls by a friend of mine while he was cultivating corn, and I painted him a picture of a buffalo, and he gave me this here. And I have there's a man coming from the University of Minnesota that's going to come and look at this, and he's give me the age, and that's the old, I guess it's the axe, and then here's the pounding rock. Here what they pound corn with and stuff like that. And of course here's the Tommy Hawk here, that there. And of course the most famous thing I have here is, I think, is my peace pipe. And I have friends come here lots of times, and they'll sit around the table and they smoke that. And it's been used, and it was made by a fellow right at Pipestone, an Indian at Pipestone. And this is the regular peace pipe. And of course some of this jewelry here. My sister made this for me, and here's one made by an artist in Siston, South Dakota. I think it has the Thunderbird, the white sacred buffalo, the peace pipe, and the arrowhead and lightning, all in that one. And of course now they make these bracelets for watches. And this is a breastplate that a friend of mine made for me, and it goes with this choker here. This is a choker here that goes with that. It goes around your neck. And of course this here is what they call the Folsom Point, which is the oldest one known. There's no before one of the oldest. They say he told me it was about 40,000 years ago when they first had this. The first arrowhead they had. And of course we find quite a few arrowheads around my place here. I always give them away. And they find quite a few of these hatches. Now the farmers know, so they watch for them, and they're picking them up all over the field. Did you want me to say something in Dakota Sioux?
Why don't you give a message to the Sioux, to your own people?
I don't know. Dakota heche chargeon to ma, and not Dakota. They are Dakota. Uniu jako memo že mijeni čeče. Dakota. They were situated down in a town Kuava. Dish na kunde numde. Hiba reite machuwa. You takoa. Tokata itoa elkeni dena tuktere na pazoma. Da ni čeče, heć to kanina was stekte. Kadeno unina piwada kana kung the Lower Sioux Dakota kde oa wita wopila ewicha apete. Nina pidama ke apedo.
Move it up just a little bit. There. Move it more. There.
My name is Reuben St. I lived here in Morton here in Lower Sioux for most of my life. For a while I was in California for about 5 years, and then of course 4.5 years in the Second World War. But otherwise I've been here, and I know most of the people here, and my dad was the first Indian ordained minister to be here. He was ordained by Bishop Whipple, the first bishop of Minnesota. About 28 families. It varies, sometimes 30, but most of the people, all the young people live in the cities most of the time because there is no work here. So that's then of course after the outbreak, most of the Indians left here, and they didn't come back in here till later years when Bishop Whipple brought some of the Christian Indians back in here, and then they finally, most of them were Christians that came back, and then the church used to be east of where it is now, the Bishop Whipple Church, and I guess French called the Sioux that because he snuck through the grass like a snake. It wasn't, it didn't sound that bad, but anyway, we like to be called Dakotas, which we are. We are the Sioux, Sioux, and we are now called, we used to be called the Bishop Whipple Mission. And then in 1936, when the self-government came in here, why, then we were named the Lower Sioux. We took that name. The one in Granite Call is called the Upper Sioux. And this is the Lower Sioux. In community. It's not a reservation, it's a community. There's one, when Dad was born in Faribault, Minnesota, that's where he was raised. And later on then he went to school at the military academy there at Shattuck, and also went to St. Mary's School. And then he was ordained as a minister and came here, and he was here for 55 years, I think, as a minister, and then finally retired. And we are of the Odawakantoa Sioux tribe. We don't like the name Sioux because that's a French word meaning snake in the grass. So that was moved back here, and the Indians rebuilt that church. And then Bishop Whipple's niece, Miss Salisbury, came here. Oh, she was going to marry, she lived in Faribault, and she was going to marry an army officer there when she was in her younger days. When she was a young lady in here, all of a sudden he died, so she made up her mind she was going to go to some mission, so foreign mission, and Bishop Whipple told her to, why don't you go down to Morton? There's a Indian settlement there, you could be a missionary there. So she came.